Hello, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I need to show people. I feel like everyone does not have their video on. Is that true? There's Arjun. Hi, Arjun.
Good night.
Good evening. I think maybe we're joined by a bunch of AI bots. We'll see. But we're gonna
I woke up, so
we're here to do the attract session of the Attract, Convert, Deliver Summit. I'm going to give a few more minutes for people to come in and join us. Just so that that's usually what happens. Usually we kick things off at the top of the hour, but we need to give 3 or 4 minutes for people to show up. Serenity, I see you now. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Serenity, what part of the world are you in?
I'm in London, the UK.
My Lord, people are late night. Arjun, where are you?
I am an accountant, but I don't do accounting.
Right.
I do anti-money laundering and compliance more.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's not a huge demand in Windsor for that job.
someone has a call going on. If you wouldn't mind muting it. I can't see you, so I'm not sure who that is.
I'm based in the Netherlands, so it's 1 a.m.
Oh my Lord, I'm like honored that you people have stayed up to hang out here. That's great. Victoria, I see you as well. Where are you from?
I'm from Florida.
Florida. Less late. Fantastic.
Yes, much less.
Christina, where are you? Where are you from?
I'm in Kingsville, Ontario. Sorry, that call was mine. I thought I was muted.
No worries.
I'm in Ontario.
Ontario. All right. And your camera is not on, so I cannot see who I was talking to there.
Yeah. If I turn my camera on, the quality of the video stalls and etc. So I keep it off.
No worries at
Okay.
all. Cynthia, where are you calling from? I did that just perfectly. I timed it perfectly so that you could answer us right after you took a bite of your lunch or dinner.
It is lunch. I'm sorry. That's why my camera's off. I am having the first meal of the day. I'm in Los Angeles.
Super cool. Nice. All right. It's only 5 p.m. for you. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, excellent. Well, it's 5 past the hour. We will probably have some other people join us, but as we, have limited time here, I want to get us started. So our goal here is to kick off the first part of the Attract, Convert, and Deliver Summit, where we're going to talk about, how do we actually create a process that brings learners or students, whatever label you want to give them, into the courses that we've created. I have created this document that I'm going to put into the chat here for you. As we go through today and then the other 2 days, all of the assets that I'll share in terms of PDFs or templates or whatnot are all located. There's a link at the top of this document, and you'll be able to I put them all in one place so that you can grab them. But at the document, you can see it on your screen right now as well, kind of gives you a nice overview of what my intention is to cover over these 3 days, right? So the first day is, pretty simple. It's like, in order to attract an audience, there's kind of 3 things that we need to know. We need to have a clear product or service that people can purchase. So we're going to go over that. We need to know who our ideal customer is, and we need to know where they are. So if we know those three things, then we can actually put ourselves in a position where we are actually able to bring them in and have conversations with them. The second day of our summit, in order to convert, which is convert, I make this bigger on my screen, is basically to talk about a sales conversation. Because one of the hardest things that we all end up, or the biggest walls we end up running into or whatever, is that courses do not sell themselves, right? And so until you get to a point where you have a reputation, or until you get to a point where you have a large enough audience, or until you get to a point where you have a huge referral network that just keeps bringing leads into your business and bringing new people in your business, you need to do sales. And so we're going to talk about, our common conversations around how we feel about doing sales, how we can shift our perspective from, sales as a manipulating or bad or schmarmy kind of thing to something that is actually, providing value to your potential clients. Then we're going to talk about how to create engaging conversations, how to actually ask people to come and say, yes, I'd really be interested in, a course about X, Y, or Z, depending on what your topic is. And then, getting okay with hearing the word no, because most of the people that we will talk to and most of the people that we will encounter will say no to coming and joining our course, or they will do, which is sometimes even more difficult. They will say yes and then never show up. So how do we deal with that? And then the third day, we're going to talk about actually delivering something that is both rapid and easy, but powerful for that audience that you're starting to build, right? So once you've found them and once you put yourself in the position to start having those conversations and you get to start, you start people to, they start saying yes to you, you actually have to deliver it. And so we're going to actually build or go through the process of building out a workshop course so that we can have a product rapidly that we deliver to this audience that we can then use to understand what works and what doesn't work. And we're going to go through the process of workshop development, which is naming the problem that your audience has, explaining why you're able to solve that problem, providing at least one piece of massive value in that workshop that they can walk away with, and then giving a clear call to action for the audience to take away as a next step to work with you or take a next course with you or buy something from you. And so if we go through this entire 3-step process, we should be able to not only find our audience, identify them, put ourselves in the place where we can have conversations with them, actually have those sales conversations and get them to sign up with us, and then have a product that we can deliver with. Can I get a thumbs up from people? Does that make sense? All right, awesome. I see Arjun, that makes sense to you, and Victoria, great, awesome, fantastic. So again, this I put the link to this document in the chat here, and all of the assets we're going to be going with over the next 45 minutes here are in there. So today we're going to talk about these two things. I don't need to repeat it. So basically, what is the business that you have? Who's your target audience, and where are they located at? So let's talk about what's the business that we have. And you saw in the emails that I sent, it was really recommended that you're able to complete the Crack Your Course Idea online course before you come here. And is there anyone who has not completed the Crack Your Course Idea? That's really nice. That's fantastic. So Christina's completed it. Nikki gave a thumbs up a few seconds ago. Awesome. So what I'd like to make sure that we're very clear on is I want to just kind of go through, for a few minutes here and just understand what our mega niches are and what our micro niches are, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Arjun, give me an example. What's your mega niche that you work with?
Mega niche. I think it's personal growth,
Okay. All right.
but I'm a bit doubtful because it's self-leadership development. So
That sounds like personal growth to me.
I think so.
Self-leadership development. That's great. Victoria, because I can see you. What's your mega niche that you work with?
Health and wellness.
Health and wellness. All right, nice. Excellent. Cynthia, what about you? I'm gonna beat you to your next forkful.
Mine is also health and wellness, specializing in non-toxic living.
Fantastic. So non-tactical, that great. You took us right to the micro niche. That's fantastic. Um, Wonderful. So again, for anybody who hasn't done the Crack Your Course or is having struggling with this concept of a mega niche, it's basically finding that really big bucket of where you fit. And so we had we just had health and wellness is one of them. We have personal development is one of them. You could have medicine is one of them. You could have electronics is one of them. You could have software, computer services is one of them. So there is a full PDF in the Crack Your Course online course that you have, and it's also on the document here. It's in the assets that if you would like to go through and look at your mega niches or maybe consider what that could be, there is that I believe there's 20 of them that Marisa Murgatroyd has identified, and it's as good as list as any to identify what what a mega niche could be. Next, we talk about micro niche. Victoria, no, that was not Victoria. It was Cynthia. She said, she went from health and wellness to women in toxic relationships. I believe that was correct. Did I get that right?
No, it's
Sorry.
health and wellness,
Uh-huh.
and my specialty is non-toxic living.
Non-toxic living. Thank you. I apologize. I heard the word
No.
toxic. Toxic is so often associated with relationships these days and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Yeah.
so non-toxic living. That's fantastic. Well, I'll take you to. We'll go to like. How would you express that in if I were to come to you and say, "Wow, non-toxic living," like what kind of course would you create around that?
Well, I have created a course that is a home audit. So it talks about the different toxic chemicals and substances that are found in common everyday household products in your home and how it can affect the way you feel. I specialize in women and women with children.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk about how it can affect your hormones, it can affect your skin, allergies, and a host of other physical symptoms that can actually lead to chronic illnesses. And so I talk about those things that people are buying, not unconsciously, that's affecting the way they feel.
Awesome. Thank you for that description. I love that how you described it, because if you look on the screen right now, you said there's a specific problem, toxicity in the home, right? I'm
Mhm.
assuming that there's clear solutions about either maybe buying different things or removing things from your home or investigating different ways to, maybe different products to buy.
Mhm.
And there's clearly an audience that's probably willing to pay for this, I'm assuming.
I've just started, so I'm hoping there is. I've been coaching for free for a while, but I did really niche down because I do feel as though from just talking to women and moms that there's more of an emotional tug when we talk about our children.
Mhm.
And so that's the reason I'm focusing on mothers with children.
Love it. I've got 3 kids of my own, and I can guarantee you start talking about my kids, I'm going to have a much more focused conversation on you.
Yes.
Again, I'd love to offer you the opportunity to talk about what micro niche mega and micro niche that you operate in. Cool. Serenity, can you hear me?
Serenity's a middle name. I usually go by Sophia, so sorry about
Oh,
that.
sorry, Sophia. There
No,
you go.
yeah. So my the mega niche is life purpose, and the micro niche is coming back after having had children
Mm,
into the career. So from a getting that your mojo back.
fantastic. And walk me through like what are some of the obviously this is a problem that at least 50% of the population could have, and um, probably a very large percentage of that population as well. So there's clearly an audience there. What are the kind of some of the really key solutions or clear solutions that you provide?
So so getting down to more specifics, it's a plan to get people back into in 90 days back into a fulfilling state.
Mhm. And what are the specific ways that you might do that? Could you give me one or two examples?
Oh, I've got like quite a specific process that comes based back from my martial arts background, but I've been trying to sort of avoid the how,
Mm, okay.
focus on the fact that people will be able to show up. It's the emphasis is that they can show up much at a much higher rate. So they'll be able to act on what they want far more reliably and regularly. I'm in the process of trying to sort of pin down the words for that, but that's the essence of what the way I'll be helping them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Wonderful. So I'm just making sure that I see. So Nikki has just put into the chat here, people who are overwhelmed with clutter and disorganization in their home. They're considering a minimalist lifestyle or find a way to eat out. And then why can't I let it go of my stuff? Change your habits and change your brain. Thanks for sharing that, Nikki. I really appreciate it. Awesome. Since we have such a small group, Arjun, why don't you just take a 2 seconds as well? And personal growth. What's your micro niche that you focus on?
My micro niche is self-leadership, where I focus on business owners and actually everyone who understands that they are a leader, which is everyone. But and then I focus mainly on the how to articulate your future self, your future perspective to for clarity and confidence to inspire others, but also to prepare for tomorrow.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Could you give me one really specific outcome that you would have for somebody working on personal leadership like that? Like
Well, one
either
of them is that you could,
one change that you could, that we like one thing, one shift they would make,
yeah.
or one change they would make?
Well, I think the main thing is that you can just put into words who you are becoming in the and what your horizon is when you think a year, 3 years ahead. So that you can start align your daily actions as the preparations that contribute to the aspired future you carry.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. Fantastic. Again, I know that I'm going to go kind of rapidly here, but especially since it seems like we have a pretty good handle on mega niches and micro niches about understanding, the bigger bucket that we're in, and then that micro niche, like what's that really focused topic that you're going to specialize in, or that your practice revolves around. Super important, because as you've heard many people say, including Marisa, the riches are in the niches, right? That's where we find them. Any questions before I moved on to target audience? Super cool. So I put a graphic up on the screen here for thinking about target audience, and we're actually going to go through target audience in two different ways. So one way that you've now heard about finding your target audience, if you look on the screen here, is by thinking about these these three circles, right? And we're creating kind of a holistic Venn diagram around them about what it is that you offer, who it is that you serve, and how you're different. And so if you look at what you offer and how you're different, that's the value you have, right? And so, as Sophia just said, she's pulling from a martial arts background in order to work with her clients, right? So there's a unique way that she's approaching that particular solution. We heard from Cynthia about toxicity in the home, and so her expertise on those toxic pieces that we may have in products or in things around our home. That's the value that she's offering there, right? Arjun, you were just talking about your ability to work with people to work on self-leadership and move towards a vision over 3 years. And so the value that you'll add is what specific types of nudges you can give to people, or frameworks that you can give to them to move them along in that vision and that path. So if we're thinking about, so if we've kind of identified the value that we want to put out there in the world, we also have to find out who are we talking with. So Marisa talks about niches or tribes in the crack your course idea piece. And so if we look at a niche, the Venn diagram between who you serve and what you offer, that's the niche of people. So, if we're looking at toxic homes, it's, anybody who has a home, but as Cynthia said, she's looking at women with children. So we've really come down to a very specific group of people who have this problem. If I'm trying to remember other examples that we had. If I go back and look at Nikki's example here, people who are overwhelmed with clutter and disorganization in their home. And so those are the people that she served and what she's offering. So her niche is um, that decluttering process, right? And so if we were to flip that on its head, and so Nikki, thanks, neuroscience minimalist coaching. If we were to flip that on its head and say, rather than I'm gonna forgive me for forgetting the person who is the decluttering, guru, right? That was out there, right? She has a certain approach to decluttering, and she wrote a book on it that became ultra famous. I believe she's an Asian woman, but I cannot. I don't want to stumble over myself. There you go, Mary Kondo. There, that's her name. Thank you so much, Nikki. um she approaches like, so she has a similar topic, but she approaches it in a different way, right? She wrote a book and she's like, look, here's my process for doing it. I've never read the book and I don't know what it is, but there's a process there. In Nikki's case, she says, look, I've got a different way to look at this in, a neuroscience minimalist way to do that. And so as we're looking at whether our target audience is, niche focused or tribe focused, she could actually come out there and position her courses and herself with her target audience as a tribe. So, there's a tribe of people out there who are really interested in minimalism. And there's probably of that, tribe of people who are minimalists. There's a lot of those people who are interested in the neuroscience, how they create a better life through neuroscience as well. And so that's a tribe that you could define as well. Any questions around sort of tribe-based or niche-based ways to create a target audience?
Stephen, I actually have been toying with that, going back and forth.
Sure.
Not really sure which one I should settle on.
What feels right? Like, I guess do us the favor of how would you describe your tribe, or how would you describe, and versus how would you describe your niche?
Well, the tribe, I would probably say that they are really focused on prioritizing their health and well-being. But I also could see that that would also be appropriate for both. So I don't know.
Okay, so if we go back to our diagram, right? The people you serve, you just kind of describe the people you serve, right? People who they want to live in a healthy environment, right?
Yes.
So the differentiator that we're trying to determine here is, do you have like a really specific process or a way or an approach or a personality or something that really sets you apart and makes you different in this space? Or are people going to come to you because, hey, look, you've got it, there's a step-by-step process that you have that, is just, it's laser focused and it works every time. And, that's what you offer them. So like, what I'm trying to ask you is, do you feel like people are attracted to you because of who you are, because of Victoria? It's Victoria. No, it's Cynthia. Because it's Cynthia, or are they attracted to you because it's like, oh, I've been thinking about this toxicity problem in my home a lot and I want to get it done?
I'm hoping it's the latter, but I want obviously them to feel as though they would enjoy working with me. I try and bring fun to, my approach.
Okay. So if your hope is the latter, right, that they want to remove toxicity from their homes.
Right.
And rather than attaching you to it, right, that one may argue that that's how you could scale faster. You're like, look, here's a process that works. That would be the messaging that you would, going forward when we when we're
Mhm.
going to convert, you'd really want to focus on those conversations around, hey, I have a process for this, rather than focusing on conversations like, look, I think that you could really trust me. I've done this a lot before with other people. I can work with you, and we can solve this problem together. That kind of language. Rather, your language would probably be focused on your niche, where it's like, I have a process. It works every time. Let me show it to you, and you can make your decision from there, kind of thing, and like kind of giving more proof and more social proof and examples of how it works, that kind of thing, right?
So that would be more of a niche
Correct.
based. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's it feels right.
that's great.
Thank you.
Personally, if I to give you an example from my life, I usually focus on so where my sweet spot is technology and sort of removing the friction and the overwhelm from building online courses and the technology behind it. There's a lot of different parts there, right? And so for me, I prefer to look at a tribe-based approach, because I find that people in this kind of amorphous world of technology and online platforms and whatnot, they gravitate towards somebody that they trust, because either I've helped them solve a problem, or I speak a language that they understand, or I am able to, communicate with them in a way that they feel comfortable with. And so for me, using a tribe-based approach works a little better in the world that I'm in, simply because I don't like, I don't really like using the language of technology and whatnot. I just think there's too many other competitors out there, and it's too easy to get lost in the weeds, right? Not easier, but that's what I want. Just want to say to Michelle, thank you so much. But Michelle, we will be sharing the recording as well. Would anybody else like to either test out or give us their thoughts on whether or not they are looking at a tribe-based or a niche-based approach?
I think that tribe-based was an interesting twist and really addresses that I niche down on forerunners and forward-thinking leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the personal aspect in that as well. I help them to verbalize what their future self is, both as an identity perspective and an authority perspective. So that really connects to who I am, having the authority to help them to work out their authority. So that's why I think tribe-based is actually a bit harder to define, but it's really worth, because it actually is an extension of what it is about that I offer.
I think one of the key aspects, thank you very much for sharing, Arjun. I really appreciate that. Excuse me. One of the key aspects to remember about the tribe-based approach is how you're different, right? So the people that you serve, it sounds to me like you generally come in contact with people, or you seek out people who are those forward thinkers, who are on the bleeding edge, who are, trying to push the envelope and look towards that future. And then what really is like, so how is Arjun someone who's different, who either has a different tonality, has a different conversation around that, it has examples that no one else is providing, or maybe they connect with you in a certain way, and that would be a great way to build a tribe-based definition and path forward here. The key thing, I'm gonna keep us moving along, just simply because I want to make sure that we get through both this identifying our core client, but also then talking about what's it called? Where our audience exists, because both of these are can be kind of detailed. The key criteria here, though, I want to just make sure that we touch on in here is that your tribe or your niche of people, it's important to make sure that they recognize that they have this problem, right? That's like, so you can't, like, any sales process is ultimately the solving of a problem. So whatever course you create or whatever, service you have or anything like that, it will be, it's solving a problem for somebody. So they need to be able to recognize they have this problem. Then they have to be willing to pay for that, for the solution that you're offering. And then obviously, they have to be able, you have to find them somehow. So if any of those three criteria are not a part of the people that you're looking for, we need to rethink that. I want to share another way. I want to go down where we can get very, very specific about who our client person, our ideal client is. And we're not going to go through, I'm going to walk through it here over the next 5 minutes to take you through it. But we're not going to complete it together. This is something that is a piece that I've put into our files here. I'm just going to open them up because I do not have it opened up. And it's this document right here called the Ideal Client Profile. And give me 1 second. I'm noticing that my computer is not plugged in, which is a failure on my side. So I'm going to plug it in really quick so that we don't have me shut down here in the middle of the conversation. And Shazam. So this document is something that any of you can use. You'll find that when you click on it, it says view only. So if you want to, use it, and I hope everybody will, all you have to do is go to the top of the Google Doc and make a copy of it for yourself, and then you're able to edit it to your heart's content. Ultimately, what this framework is it allows us to get extremely clear about who and what our client looks like so that we can recognize them in any place. And we also know how to say no to people who may not be our client, right? And so coming down in this example that I have on the screen here, I will make it bigger for you so that you can see it. This is an example that I created so that, I help coaches, grow their practice by creating online courses, right? And so the personal background of an ideal client for me, they're usually between the ages of 30 and 50. They're generally female, but men are a part of that as well. But I know that the population skews towards female. They're usually Western European or from the United States, and they're usually located in those places as well. I don't think that there's any marital status or education level that I particularly focus on, because I feel like many of the coaches I work with, they come from all over, all different types. But this is an interesting one that I think we hesitate to talk about, but something I think that is really, really important is are they able to afford the services that you want to put out there in the world? Like, do they afford the courses that you have, the memberships that you have, the one-on-one coaching you have, et cetera. And so you have to ask yourself, does your ideal client, how much money do they make? And so in my case, I'm saying, most of the people I work with, they make, a little less than $100,000 a year, usually, about $75,000 a year or right around there. So they can afford the coaching that I provide, they can afford the services that I provide, but they want to actually level up and probably grow from that place as well. They're likely employed right now. So when I'm talking with them, that means that the course business that they want to create is probably a side hustle. And they would love for that to be their full-time job, and they would love for that to grow into that, but they are, they're still figuring that out, and they're still working on that. So it's my job to try to help them to lift up beyond that, right? But it's something it's a key piece to think about. The professional background that they have, current industry. These are a lot of health and wellness people are in this business, but there's also other people who are focused on mental health aspects. Some people are, personal development, et cetera. Usually they have, they're usually experienced, so they know who they're talking to, they know their stuff, and they're interested in taking that knowledge and putting it out there in the world. They're usually, like I said, they're usually employed when I get to them, or when I'm talking to them. And then I think this is very interesting. I find that usually they have a certification of some kind, or they have a process of some kind, or they have a framework of some kind that they've either developed or they have acquired from somewhere else, right? And so that's a key piece. Their goal is to be self-sufficient and have a profitable coaching practice. And their current challenges are these, which I'm sure that some of you or many of you can identify with as well. Like not enough clients, don't know how to get leads, they don't like sales, et cetera, et cetera. But here's some of the cool things that I like to think about as well, like who they are. These are not, when you put personality traits here, the people that I usually work with are usually very sort of caring, loving, they're concerned about other humans, those kinds of things. These are not what you would consider, sort of your cutthroat entrepreneurs who are, in the startup world, or, maybe Silicon Valley, or, hustlers maybe on Wall Street or something like that. Like these are people who have a different perspective on life, values and beliefs that they have. These are key things that are important about this tribe, that they believe, the different hobbies that they have, lifestyle preferences. I meet a lot of people who say, look, I'm here in this job, but my dream is to be my own boss, be able to travel when I want. Many people who I work with, they say they want to have a simple lifestyle, et cetera. Live in open spaces and warm clients, et cetera. And then coming down here, we can think about, who do we want to know in terms of how they prefer to be communicated with, what kind of decision-making processes they have, what kind of level of commitment they're willing to have in your process, and then what kind of learning style they have. Even though I'm actually, academically, there's no such thing as a learning style. I admit that and I know that, but it's still something that many of us cotton to because we feel like we have a particular learning style. Then one of the things that we do is that we actually create a journey for a person who's going to work with us. So in this case, I've actually created this journey as an example for you about this fictitious person named Anastasia, who, is interested in building a coaching practice and, using online courses, and then how she became a wellness coach and got certified, et cetera. And then where she's at in her coaching business when she gets to me, and then how she learned about the system that we have for building courses and building your business through courses, and then the coaching experience, and then how her life is transformed. And so what I'd love to encourage you to do is I've given you this template here below in this document. And I have found it to be very, very, very useful to take the time to go through and think about who is your ideal client. What do they look like, taste like, smell like, how much money they earn, where do they live, what are their hobbies, all of these different things. Because that way, when you get into this next part that we're going to get to, like where they're at, one of the most important things to know about sales is when to say no or when to disqualify someone from your process. And so you don't waste time in a sales process with them. I'm going to pause there because we're 40 minutes after the hour here. This template is fairly detailed, and I know that I went through it really quick. Is there any questions that you have about it, or any reflections? Has anybody ever done any detailed work like this before? Thank you, Arjun. I appreciate the thumbs up.
I have a question. When you think about your avatar or ideal person, do they really all have the same interests and hobbies outside of maybe what you're trying to sell them? And how do you really home in on identifying where they are? That's my challenge.
Okay, so the very next thing that we're going to talk about is what's called the BBB model. You can either build, buy, or borrow your audience, like where you find them. So let's pause on where you find them and come back to your first question of, can you create an ideal, a profile like this that, really matches everyone? No, what we're trying to create here is like, what does your ideal client look like, right?
Okay.
And so if you were to meet somebody and you're just like, holy smokes, you're amazing. For instance, there was a woman who I worked with this is like 72 hours ago. and she focuses on high-end, working with people on building high-end designer products, right? And so the profile, if you could just think about that for a second, the person that she would describe in this document is very, very different than necessarily a mom who's interested in removing toxicity from her home, right? Like somebody who's interested in high-end products is thinking about manufacturing, is thinking about where do they source materials for products from? Like, how do I get into the highest level of, high revenue and high wealth individuals? And, like there's a whole different process of people, like where they hang out and those kinds of things, right? And so what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get to a place where we understand who those people are, who that person is, that ideal client that we work with, so that when we meet them in real life or on a chat or in a forum or a group space or something like that, we can start to ask questions like, hey, like, we can get a sense of things like, what things do you gravitate to? And I'm trying to honestly trying to think of a couple of good examples in your case. But there's probably lots of things around children, around, the safety of the home, around, building a better future, those kinds of things that they would gravitate to in those conversations, rather than thinking about how do I make more money, or how do I buy more, more gadgets, or, how do I advance in my career, or, how do I, build better software. So it really will help you to understand that you're talking to the right people.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Super cool. Any other questions before we move on to the BBB formula?
Oh, just of interest, is the level of detail the same for a niche or a tribe-based approach?
Yeah, in this particular case, so I'm actually taking two approaches to determine who your target audience is. So the niche and the tribe-based approach is one way to think about it, and it's much more high level, right? It's like, hey, look, I'm going to focus on a niche where I'm kind of going through a process, or a tribe where, I either have a personality or I have a life experience or something that makes me different, right? And so that's one way to think about identifying with your target audience. This is another tool that I've used and have found really, really helpful to just get in my mind, like, what does my target client look like? And what do I want them to have in order to be able to not only attract them to me, but also be able to say, when I get into a conversation, determine if they're qualified or not to come into my practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because like a lot of us spend a lot of time spinning our wheels around people who either are never going to buy, can't afford our service, or maybe just, aren't really interested in the product that we have to offer. And so we want to make sure that we bring in and attract those people that have those criteria, so that they're ready to buy from us. Cool. So moving on, Cynthia asked a really great question. How do I find it? So if we go back to the top of the screen here, remember what the thing that we have to do is we have to know what we're selling, what's our product. We have to know who we're selling it to. And then we have to say, so where are they? Where are these people? Right?
Yes, yes.
So the answer is they're all around us all the time. And there's kind of three ways to find them. You can either build an audience, right? So that you've heard this from all kinds of gurus out there, whatever. It's like, hey, go out and build your email list, or hey, go out and build your social media following. Go start a Facebook group and start to, create a public group where people come in. And so this is an audience that you own because you've built it, right? You're an owner of the list, or you're an owner of the platform, or whatever like that. And that's where most people start. And quite frankly, that's where we're going to start as well, but we're going to start in a very specific way. And I'm going to come to that next. So you can build an audience. You can, or a second way to do it is you can borrow an audience. Excuse me. Borrowing an audience, as you can see here, this is where you're taking your expertise and you're going into another person's audience and you're raising your hand and saying, I'm an expert. So this is being a guest on a podcast. This is being a guest speaker at a webinar or a seminar or something like that. This is being, doing guest blog posts and having links come back to you, right? So you're saying, hey, other person who has an audience out there, I'd like to share my expertise, and and not the hope, but the idea is that you would then start attracting people from that audience to also be a part of your audience as well. It takes it takes longer. You have to make more connections, and it's a strategy that you go down usually second after you've started to build your practice and you have some testimonials and you have people who've said, yes, this is a person I like working with, and you have success stories. The third type of audience that you can do is a bought audience, an audience that you buy. And this sounds really weird because we're not in the business of going out and buying humans, obviously, but what we're in the business of is going out and buying eyeballs. And so this is using ads, like Facebook ads or Google ads, or ads in a conference, or ads in places like maybe in your local community. There's lots of people who forget that their local community has wonderful outlets for not only accessing spaces to get borrowed audiences, but also accessing advertising spaces as well. This is sponsoring events so that your brand, your label goes out there, and so then you get a speaking event or something like that. This is using an affiliate network so that you have other people selling your product for you. So built, borrowed, and bought, those are the three main ways to go out and find your audience or start to build your audience that will be attracted to your service. Before I start to describe how I'd like to help you build an audience, is there any questions out there? Nikki just wrote in the chat, she's heard of buying email lists. And is that a thing? And is it even worthwhile? Great question. So buying email lists is a thing. My very, what's the word I'm looking for? Humble advice to you about buying email lists is that if someone approaches you about, an email list that they have to sell you, don't buy it, because it's probably an email list that is either fraudulent, or it was gotten fraudulently, or it doesn't even have emails that are valid or anything like that. If you're really interested in rapidly finding like a large list of people who might be interested in your service, there are plenty of opportunities out there to do that. For instance, one of the ones, I'll put it in the chat here just if you're interested. Hey. Apollo.io. There's another one called data.com. So like if you go to apollo.io, you can, it's a database of some 70 or 80 million people that they've gone out, and they've gone through the process of verifying their LinkedIn and verifying their email and their phone number. And by buying into that service, you can then, download a list of email addresses and whatnot. And so again, it's totally legitimate and whatnot, but then you're going to be basically doing what would be called a cold call strategy of either sending a cold email, a cold connection request, or a cold phone call in order to start getting this business. Totally legit. It works. I have done cold email, and I'm befuddled by how many people still respond to cold emails, but it's a process. Does it answer your question, Nikki? I'll assume that's a thumbs up. So going back to, it doesn't answer your question. Nikki, what's the question? What part of your question did I not answer? Now I'm waiting with bated breath because I'm wondering what. Let's see what she says, folks. Dun, dun, dun. Sorry. So essentially, the differentiator between buying an email list that you mentioned was I receive emails very regularly about, hey, would you like to buy the email list from conference XYZ? Or would you like to buy the email list from, ed tech providers? Or would you like to buy the email list of blah, blah, blah? And, I get these and they come into my my spam email box, right? And so those lists, like if you're approached by someone who's selling a list, my advice is no, simply because you don't know where that list came from. You don't know what it is. But quite frankly, if that, let's just say, I'm going to take Cynthia's as, her niche as an example of working to remove toxicity, right? I guarantee there are conferences that are happening every year around toxic products or they're labeled something different, right? So with the conference
global wellness summit.
Right. Yeah, or yeah, the Global Wellness Summit, or Healthy Living Summit, or Healthy Home, convention, or I'm sure there's got to be hundreds of these, right?
Yes.
You can go to the provider of that conference, and for a fee, you can usually buy the list of people who showed up for the conference, right?
I didn't know that.
It's usually not cheap. And again, remember, you're going to be cold emailing those people or cold calling them. So but you could go get that, and you will know that, hey, anybody who showed up for a conference called Healthy Home Conference, they're probably pretty interested in removing toxins, right? So that is one way, right? But that is a bought strategy, right? You're going to have to spend money to do it, and the outcome from it may not be fantastic, right? So Nikki, I hope that I was able to differentiate that. The differentiator with a service like Apollo or data.com or whatever is that Apollo has a giant database that they're constantly updating everything of people from all over the world and all kinds of different industries and all kinds of niches and all that kind of stuff. And so when you buy into that service for a small subscription, you can then go and search in Apollo and say, look, I want to find anybody who's a CEO or a founder of a gym in North America. And that will give you a very specific list of people who founded a fitness gym in North America, and you can download that list or you can contact them. So that's the difference. So to round out our conversation this evening, ladies and gentlemen, or this morning, depending on where you're in the world, my suggestion, so we've kind of we know what business that we have. We've got our niche, we've got our mega niche and our micro niche. We're going to work on, and we're going to really understand who our ideal client is. We now need to start to build that actual audience that we're going to sell our course to. And my recommendation is building a hot list. And so the hot list is something that is it makes us all a little uncomfortable. And it makes us all a little go, crap, really? Because it's so obvious. But it will really make you confront, and what we're going to do in the next session and talk about sales, it's going to make you confront all of those things around how do you start to talk about this thing that you've created, either this business, profession, practice, whatever you want to call it, and get it out there. So the hot network is a subset of your built audience that knows you well. And so the reason why it works is it's fast, it's effective, and you're actually reaching out to people that they're either absolutely 100% trust you, or they're 1 or 2 degrees away from someone who trusts you. So who is a hot network member? A hot network member is anybody in your family, your friends, business connections, past clients, former coworkers, other acquaintances. Maybe you've got a church group. Maybe you've got a yoga group that you go to regularly. Maybe you've got a men's group that you attend. Any of these people are a part of what you could be as your hot network. And so we want to, this slide should have been serious. Basically, it's, why to start with a heart. Why to start with your hot network is because you already get quick access to them. You probably already have their contact information. You know how to contact them. You can get a hold of them. They will probably either say yes to your offer or give you feedback or refer you to someone who will be interested in your offer. And then this is a way to build referrals and testimonials. So what I've done, again, in the folder of assets that I've created for you today, is I've created a spreadsheet, and it's very, very simple, that you can start filling out, that will allow you to put their name in here for your hot network, and then determine if they are a hot lead, a hot member of that network, a warm or a lukewarm member of that. So I'm not going to go down this list here, so I just want to show you that spreadsheet is there. I'm going to come back to it here. So ultimately, hot in your hot network, people who are hot in your hot network are people that you could literally, these are really good friends. These are family. These are people who you could, make a phone call today. They're going to take your phone call. They will answer your email. You have a really great relationship with them, and you can reach out to them today. Someone who is a warm lead is maybe an acquaintance, or maybe part of like I said, like a church group, or another where you could say, hey, look, I'm a community member here, or I'm an acquaintance of somehow, and you could send a message, but they might not reply immediately, or you can you may have to ask a friend of a friend, that kind of thing. And then lukewarm are people who are maybe in distant peripheral groups, or maybe again, friends of friends that you aren't necessarily on a first name basis with. And so the goal here is to come up with as large a list as you possibly can. And tomorrow, or in the next session, we're going to start talking about how do we start having conversations with these individuals to very specifically say, hey, friend, I have a course that I have developed on removing toxicity from your home. Would you be interested in, is that something that would be interesting for you in your life? And, would you come and take the course? And if they say no, say, do you know other people who might be interested in this? Right? And this is how we're going to start building our first clients. We're going to start building out our audience to get people into our network and talking about our course. That, friends, is how you waste an hour with me. Believe it or not, we went through an hour. But Nikki, I really appreciate it. I love that you put in the chat there that you are not above shamelessly asking people to forward, the word of family, all that stuff and everything. There's nothing shameless about it. This is, as we're going to talk about in the next session, when we talk about sales, rather than think about sales as something where you're pushing a product or you're trying to get somebody to do something they don't want to do or whatever, we're actually talking about it as a service and say, hey, look, there's a problem that's out there and I want to help people solve that problem. If it's not you, would you mind telling, do you know anybody else who has this problem that you've heard of that you could introduce me to? But if you do have this problem, I'd love to work with you to solve that problem, right? So that's what we're going to focus on. Any questions or words of wisdom that anybody would like to put on the table here as we end this first session up? So just to recap, we talked about our mega niche and our micro niche to make sure that we know, where we're at and where our practice is or where our course lands. How to identify our ideal client in either a niche or a tribe, or I really recommend that you go through the ideal client profile just to really get serious about if somebody were to walk through the door tomorrow and that's who you really want as your client, get that in your head and really figure that out. And then thinking about your hot network and starting to create that list so that you can start to churn on it in our next session. And then any questions? Any words of wisdom? Anything that anybody wants to cover? Awesome. You guys are too easy. Now, the next thing is, how to sell. And here's the deal. I'm coming to you as a human who has found himself in a bit of a conundrum because of the holiday season. The time that I scheduled for Thursday for us to have our next session has become unavailable. So there's a couple of family activities that with school and stuff that I need to be at for my kids. And so I want you to watch your email because I'm going to push the next session to next Tuesday. And then we're going to find another time for the third session after that. Okay. So the Thursday session is not going to happen. And I'm going to find another time to do the second and third sessions. All right. Appreciate your patience and your understanding of that. Thank you very much, everyone. I will share the recording as well. And you have all of these assets as well. So have a wonderful evening or good morning.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Goodbye.